Welcome back to another episode of the Jag Bros. It is the off season and a lot has happened. We've had the combine. It is an exciting time for the Jaguars. We have new coaches, new GM, a lot of bright futures, and we're happy about all of it. A lot of hope has been pumped back into this franchise. We were really downtrodden after last season, and I'm just really happy that Shad came to his senses, decided to change up everything. We've gone with this new youth movement. This episode, we'll be talking about the new GM, James Gladstone, breaking him down, free agent targets, trade target, some combine thoughts. But first, breaking news, Christian Kirk has been cut from the team. He will no longer be a Jaguar. How do y'all feel, JT and Jack, about this news?
Definitely a little sad. I am a big Christian Kirk fan. I rock number 13 often while watching Jags games. Love Captain Kirk. Felt like he made a ton of big plays, third downs, fourth downs, was clearly Trevor's favorite target in his 3 seasons for the Jags. But I also am excited in the sense that I think Gladstone and Coen, as they're working together, their big word over and over again has been cohesion and unity. Obviously, speaking to what did not happen in Jacksonville last year with massive dysfunction, they want to bring in a new DNA, a new culture, a new team. And I love Kirk, but they're able to save 10 plus million. And now the Jags are sitting at almost $50 million in cap space. And so free agency is just a couple days away. I think the Jags are going to make some good moves. We've got a ton of draft capital. Gladstone has hinted at they may make some big moves in the draft. So I love Kirk. Shout out to Christian Kirk. I'm cheering for him wherever he ends up in the NFL. I'm a big fan, but I'm also excited because this means a next and new chapter for the Jags.
Yeah. I also loved Kirk. I remember that you had a jersey of him, Jack, and I remember even talking about at the beginning of the season, right, where there's trade rumors of us potentially trading him, and then, oh, by the way, Doug Peterson scripts the next 7 plays coming out of the game straight for Christian Kirk, and so
yep.
I think he's a solid locker room guy. People enjoyed him, and the injury he had this past year with a broken collarbone is not one of those that typically has long-term effects. It's not like it's a soft tissue hamstring issue or or Achilles or something that like, maybe he might not be the same coming. So I expect him to be the same, but it tells me that you are trying to radically change your offense. And it's an offense that we've highlighted really runs through the slot with how Liam Coen likes to design his plays. So it's possible he wants somebody slightly bigger in that role. Or it's maybe possible that BTJ moves into the slot and we get somebody else that could actually play outside. So there's a lot of things that we don't know yet, but to echo Joey's points at the beginning, the offseason is always exciting for the Jaguars, especially when hope reigns eternal with another top 5 draft pick, a lot of money to potentially spend, and maybe the right people leading at the top of the helm finally.
Well, before we talk about Gladstone, let's talk about your wish, desire. So we're recording this Wednesday afternoon. So this is actually just hours after learning about Christian Kirk being released. But I'm curious if you guys have any inclination or leaning, because clearly the Jags are going to need to spend some resources, whether it's free agency or the draft, on wide receiver, because right now it's just BTJ, Engram, and Gabe Davis, maybe Parker Washington. So if this is going to be an air raid offense, the Jags are going to have to invest at wide receiver. Do y'all have anyone you like in free agency or the draft here?
I would assume that we're now looking at Chris Godwin. He wasn't franchise tagged by the Tampa Bay. He worked with Liam
Let's
Coen.
steal everyone from Tampa, baby.
Worked with Liam Coen. That'd be the kind of only person I would target during this free agency at wide receiver. There's not much there going on with T. Higgins being franchise tagged. So maybe we go wide receiver kind of early in the draft. We'll see.
So the other big news today, actually there's been a ton, but the guy that I've been circling once we heard this morning, and we'll love y'all's thoughts on this, is DK Metcalf has said that he is interested and wants to be traded from Seattle. And I think that could be a pretty awesome combo duo with BTJ. He brings in a veteran presence. You have two big guys. JT, to your point, you can shift BTJ in the slot. Some you could even throw Engram occasionally in the slot and just have a power slot there. But DK Metcalf, of course, is a beast, a monster, 6'4", 227. He's only 27. Every year, he's put up at least 900 yards in Seattle with typically some bad quarterback situation years. So would you be interested in sending an offer for DK Metcalf?
Of course you're interested in that, but if he's trying to leave Seattle, he's probably trying to go compete for something that matters. And as much as we would love to say that's Jacksonville, it's certainly not the narrative. So unless he's just boys with our boy Brian Thomas Jr., I don't think he leaves Seattle to go to Jacksonville. And like that doesn't feel like the type of place he's trying to land.
I mean, I could see him wanting to come here with new coaches, new like kind of outlook. Seattle's, different. You got Geno Smith, who is he actually that good? How long is he going to be a starter? Not like an incredible kind of like future, I feel like, from Seattle. Whereas the Jaguars, yes, our future is not set, but that also means that you could possibly get something really good going on.
He wants. I mean, I don't know. I'm speaking on behalf of him, but like to me, Buffalo, right? You look at these established quarterbacks. Kansas City, obviously. Heck, I mean, even Dallas. Like I could see them overspending for DK Metcalf and trying to shore up that wide receiver room. I just don't see Jacksonville making that
the number one because
right. So then Dallas is out of the picture, but I mean, Buffalo is
we're out.
Yeah. Buffalo's easy.
Well, Buffalo, the problem there is cap space becomes an issue. So that's where the Jags make a big move, a surprising move. I'll be honest. It's not like it hasn't been talked about, but a somewhat surprising move in the sense of just cutting Kirk. It feels like you're going after someone big. And I'm not saying, I mean, Godwin, Joey, to your point, would be a big one too. Ayuk, who knows? Maybe he is. There's rumors somehow he is just always now in the trade rumor mill. No, I wouldn't be interested either. But I'm just saying Davante Adams, of course, is older vet, but is potential Hall of Famer who's going to be available.
Top gap, for a year.
Yeah, you have a lot. Joey, you mentioned Godwin. I think that could make sense. And for those that don't know and or haven't been following free agency that closely right now, really right now it is a bunch of older guys that are coming off injuries or disappointing-ish seasons and like complete wild cards. So you have like Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Brandon Cooks, Deontay Johnson would probably be more in the wild card category. That like in one bucket, and then you just have these other guys that are like, they've never really been anything that special, like an Elijah Moore. Our boy Zay Jones is in the free agency market. Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, has showed some flashes at some of his places. He's in the free agency market. DJ Chark actually is one of the names listed there too, but. There's nothing that excites you. My guy last year that I thought was super under the radar and actually turned out to be really good was Darnell Mooney. I thought that was like a super under the radar guy who just had bad quarterback play in Chicago for a long time. And Atlanta was able to unlock a lot of value from him. I really wish we had got him instead of Gabe Davis. But I don't really see a lot of guys this year that would excite me, or even like I could squint and see that working outside of maybe Chris Godwin.
Yeah, so that's the wide receiver position. It's going to be a big need. It's going to be a big question mark. It's going to be exciting to see what the Jags do there. And before we look at some other free agent targets for the Jags, it's time to talk about James Gladstone. I know this happened a couple weeks ago, but we're back on the pod, and let's go ahead and talk about the Jags bringing in 34-year-old general manager James Gladstone. What have been your initial thoughts? He's coming from the Los Angeles Rams the last 9 years. What do you think about Gladstone as the new GM for the Jags?
I loved it. I've never seen a head coach come out and talk and bring up the new GM of another team. Wish him so much luck. Everyone loved him, it seems like, over there. Looks like he's a really solid guy and was a real reason why they did so well in the draft when they didn't have that many first rounders and went and got Puka Nacua before everyone else did. It was really good what he's done, and I'm excited to see what he does for us now in this draft.
It's so great when you're hiring somebody from an organization that's been proven to be a winner. Now, is he the secret sauce behind some of that success? I don't know, but he's at least seen what it looks like to be an elite run front office. The Rams have been doing really, really smart moves now for several years. I think the Eagles you would put up there. The Bears, honestly, are kind of punching above their weight. And then John Lynch in the 49ers office. Obviously, we went that route with Trent Baalke and maybe got the fool's gold of that front office. But the fact that you have it tied, Liam Combs raving about him, but I think he had a lot to do with the selection of him. So look, it's optimistic. A young guy. I'm 34 years old too, so it's kind of weird. Like, what am I doing with my life? I wish I could have been the GM of the Jaguars in a different
Gladstone
universe.
wishes he could be the host of the Jag Bros.
Hey, there we go. We'll have him on. Bunch of dudes in their young 30s talking Jags ball, but I don't know. I'm excited. You had to have something. It feels like anything is better than that, and they're both bringing a ton of energy into the facility, which I think is critical.
I think you nailed it, JT. Gladstone was my top choice of who we interviewed. Cunningham was a lot of Jags fans' favorites, and it seemed to be down to those final two, and they met and they interviewed with him that final Friday, and they announced it pretty quick. And, when you talk about coming from a winning, great organization like the Rams, who've drafted really well, they've had over 10 wins in 4 out of their last 5 seasons. And this was the quote that caught my attention big time. This is Karen Snead, the wife of Rams GM Les Snead. She said this back in February. She said, I met James when he was a high school offensive coordinator, and I looked at Les and I said, and this part is in all capital, he is the most impressive young person I've ever met. 9 years later, he's had a major part in building an absolutely incredible scouting system that has taken us to 2 Super Bowls, and he's just an all-time great human being. And there's also been another person from the Rams organization that said James is the best communicator he's been around. I love that we're moving in a completely different direction. And what I said in our last episode when we broke down the OCs, the defensive coordinators, all of Coach Cohen's staff, I said, look, this is going to be a high risk, high reward. Every major position in the Jaguars front office and coaching stuff, this is their first time. But I love that all of these guys are highly praised by their previous organization. They come from winning cultures, winning DNAs, because the Jags desperately need new culture, new DNA, and a winning culture that we've been longing for honestly a long, long, long time.
Here's the other thing that's nice. We just spent 15 minutes talking about Christian Kirk. Cutting Christian Kirk makes a ton of business sense. And how long has it been since we could say the front office is making decisions that just make a ton of business sense? Like almost every other podcast, Baalke would do something. We're sitting there scratching our head, like, what is he doing? Or like that move doesn't really make a lot of sense. And yeah, we're not like the end all be all, but like, man, like you're just doing things that make sense, freeing up a ton of cap room on a guy who's had back-to-back injuries and a guy playing on his final year contract who you don't plan on renewing. Boy, yeah, that's exactly the type of guy who you already overpaid in the first place. That's a perfect person to potentially cut.
I understood why they cut him. I'm just worried. I mean, he was Trevor's favorite kind of guy on the team. I just hope that's not going to really upset Trevor or anything. But
I think Trevor has now lived Trevor didn't play half the season there, but I think Trevor understands, and it seems Liam Cohen would have run that by Trevor too, or at least been part of that conversation. You don't, in some respects, Trevor's the highest paid person in that organization, so you kind of have to run that type of thing by him. So I'm sure they did.
And that's what I love too. That seems to be, granted, we're talking weeks in, we haven't played a single game with any of this new leadership, but there seems to be a much more emphasis from everyone involved of collaboration, working together. Oh, to your point, Joey, of, this is a big deal because Trevor Lawrence and Christian Kirk are very, outspoken about being best friends, close friends. Their families are close friends. I think they're, of course, going to keep that friendship. But I also believe that Cohen and Gladstone and Shad and all of these guys are running these things through Trevor Lawrence because they realize he's such a key part of it instead of a guy like Coach Peterson who was just always throwing Trevor under the bus. Cohen's come in and he's praising Trevor like crazy, saying, hey, that's a big reason I took this job. He's praising BTJ like crazy instead of saying, oh, he's just a rookie. No, BTJ is special. It is nice to see a coach and a GM that are players first, that is culture first, that is leadership. And I'm not saying we're going to the Super Bowl, but it feels like for the first time in a long time, they're the right pieces to build towards a Super Bowl in the future.
We will almost certainly get a bump with the GM and the coach being on the same page. I brought this up about this time last year where I was like, we're really optimistic, but they're not on the same page. I don't really understand the strategy of firing the DC who actually outformed the talent on his side roster. I think that agent will end up getting 2 wins. And like, if you're like, well, what does that mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Players are playing on the field. Sure, all of those things are true, but just the fact that you actually know what the priorities are and you can just run instead of like having to think about, well, do I need to be aligning myself more in the Balky camp? Do I need to be aligning myself in the Doug camp, or Doug's saying this, but Balky's saying that, or like what's going on, and nobody's held accountable, and who cares? I think that type of mentality should be gone, at least with this new organization.
We did an episode a couple months back, right at the end of the season, where we looked at what is the best case and the worst case scenario for the Jags. And I said the worst case scenario is firing the coaching staff and keeping Balky, because it felt like you were just going to prolong that for a significant amount of time. And look, we have ragged on Shad many a time on the pod. We think that he's made some really bad moves from a football point of view for the Jags. But I've got to give him credit. Since Trent Baalke has left, I've loved a lot of the moves this past month. And speaking of moves, the Jags will clearly be busy with nearly $50 million in free agency. And so just some key dates. This is kind of where the offseason of the NFL is going. So March 10th through the 12th is when negotiations can begin between teams and free agents. It's really a new age because so much now just happens on Twitter. So make sure to follow us and the Jags and all those important Twitter accounts, because you'll see it there first when people will sign. And then officially the new year of the NFL starts on March 12th. So JT, as you're thinking about free agency, we've already talked about wide receiver. What are the other position groups that you're circling for the Jags to address this offseason?
I wouldn't have initially said wide receiver unless they obviously moved on from Kirk, which they did. And so that's a need, because Gabe Davis is not good enough and your slot position is wide open. Or if you move BTJ in the slot, your outside position is wide open. Pretty obvious that they're going to need that. Wouldn't be surprised if they try to go draft. I mean, honestly, the position that the guy who makes a ton of sense now really is Travis Hunter. And I know we're about to talk about free agency. A little hat tip for that round pick. Boy, you need corner and you need wide receiver, a slot guy. Will he be able to play both ways? Will he? How much will he play? All those things are question marks, but he makes a ton of sense now given some of the holes. So that brings me to the second position. Corner is an obvious need. Tyson Campbell, who's been fine. And you've had the development of Jarian Jones, but you need another corner at least, and probably 2, just in case Campbell continues his injuries. So in addition, Andre Cisco walked away, so safety is going to be an important position to need, maybe 2, to truly upgrade that area. Every Jags fan has been talking about for a year plus now. Just please go get the Jadeveon Clowney, get one of those guys that's the veteran, hey, single year, 2-year deal that can maybe give you 8 to 10 sacks. Go find somebody like that to add defense in depth. Offensive line is an area that you certainly like to upgrade, not try to break the bank, but defensive tackle. I mean, it's almost like pick the position on where you want to upgrade.
Which is something we've talked about a lot recently. In some ways, you can, of course, look at it glass half empty and be like, man, the Jags have a ton of holes. But at the same time, it's kind of nice because you can go best available player in both free agency and the draft. So if there's a guy that you love at pretty much any position, it kind of makes sense.
For sure. Are there specific guys that you have your eye on for us, Jack?
Yeah, so you talked about the secondary. It feels like you're going to have to address at least one, potentially both. And to your point, you could double dip where you even see free agent corner and a drafted corner. The cornerback that I've circled is an undersized guy, and so I think you can get a little bit better of a bargain, and that's DJ Reed from the Jets. Because something what I want to see too for the Jags secondary as a whole is a veteran presence. And I get the thought was Darby was that, and he just was not. He was not good on the field and just didn't seem to have any leadership. And a guy like DJ Reed, who's 28 years old, come in and a very proven corner. Can he come in and help give some guidance to a Tyson Campbell who's had several years in the league, but I believe he's still only 24 years old? Can he come in and bring some leadership to a guy like Jarian Jones, who just had a very nice rookie season and hopefully can continue to get better and better? And if you go draft a cornerback, can he bring some leadership and guidance and on-field coaching to them? Because in many ways, watching the Jets last year, DJ Reed kind of outplayed Sauce Gardner, who, of course, had a down year for the Jets. So he's one. And then the other guy in the secondary that a lot of Jags fans are loving, just a different vantage point because he's a lot more potential. He was really, really good, then got injured in 2023. And that is safety Javon Holland for the Dolphins. He's only 25 years old. He was playing at an almost elite level, gets injured, has a down year in 2024. Can he get fully healthy and come back and play at an elite level again? That's a little more high risk, high reward there. But those are two guys in the secondary that I'm looking at.
And the good news is those are the guys that are connected to who Jacksonville's been interested in, right? Again, doing things that make sense for the organization. Both guys that we've been targeting or at least been looking at. I'm going to look at defensive end, and there's some guys that fit that mold that I'm talking about. There's a DeMarcus Lawrence, the longtime Dallas Cowboy that's available, 11-year veteran. Like, I'm pretty sure he could get you 7 to 10 sacks as a rotational defensive end. Josh Sweat, a little bit younger, just won the championship with Philadelphia, a 7-year vet. That's a guy I would love to get. If you really want to go all out and go get Chase Young, the 25-year-old, but I don't think we're going to have a bidding war considering we're already over-indexed at that position. But those are guys that like even Marcus Davenport, right, who's been in the league for a number of years too. All of those guys would be solid third defensive end to rotate in on some other snaps.
One more guy to throw in there just because he is so beloved in Jacksonville. Calais Campbell is a free agent and he is going to be 39 years old, but he still had a very good year last year at 38 years old. He is the mayor of Jacksonville. He's not going to obviously have a big impact, but more just in terms of depth, leadership, culture, sell maybe a few more tickets. That is just one to watch.
It hurts a little bit as a longtime Jag fan, but he has some ties to the Rams. Dante Fowler is also out there now at 31 years old, 10-year vet, and obviously played a lot better outside of Jacksonville than he did inside of Jacksonville.
For sure. Lots of work to do on the defensive side of the ball. Probably going to see the Jags make some moves in free agency in both the secondary and defensive line. But Joey, as you're thinking about the defensive side of the ball, who are some guys that you want the Jags to target here?
Definitely seems like we're going to be targeting some secondary people. Someone I love and a big name, Trayvon Diggs. I know he had a huge injury and he didn't quite perform as well last year with the Cowboys, but a lot of rumors saying that the Cowboys are looking to shop him. It would have to be a trade most likely. I don't think they're going to cut him, but looks like they may be willing to trade him. I mean, he's still super young, very talented. I think kind of with a new location could kind of spark something new with him, kind of like Evan Engram did, kind of ran his course with the Giants and then sparked everything here in Jacksonville. So I think that could be a really fun, great kind of pick. But a lot of people are putting us with Carlton Davis, the cornerback from Detroit, who's going to be a free agent. So I think that is going to be a possibility, or Jair Alexander. This one could be a trade, or a lot of people saying they may also release him. So we may get him in free agency. We'll have to wait and see. But apparently that's 1A and 1B for the Jaguars, according to some of the people on X that say they have sources, those are the two people that they're going after the most.
Love it. Yeah, lots of rumors going around right now. And, it just reminds me, too, we always love to hear from you all. So we're going to put this out there. If you're listening on Spotify, there should be a place to comment. Definitely if you're on YouTube. But let us know, who do you want the Jags to go get in free agency? Again, with the cut today of Christian Kirk, they're going to have almost $50 million. They may even move and restructure. And I think they're going to be not the biggest player in free agency, but I think we're going to see some big moves, some potential trades. Like you just said, Joey, maybe a trade for Diggs, who was a beast 3-4 years ago. Can he have a resurgence in Jacksonville? Same for Jair Alexander for the Packers. He was amazing 2-3 years ago. Could he have a resurgence in Jacksonville? And I want to hit one more position that we're going to have to hit. And let me know your thoughts, Joey. Are you thinking free agency, draft? You've got to beef up the trenches. We saw the Eagles just dominate both sides of the ball in the trenches in the Super Bowl, run over the Chiefs. Offensive line, what do you want the Jags to do there, Joe?
Yeah, unfortunately, this is a really weak free agency class for the O-line. I mean, Brandon Sheriff is considered like the third or fourth best guard in this free agency, and then tackles aren't
Cam Robinson.
Cam Robinson, I think, is also a top 5 tackle going into this free agency. So obviously you can see not a lot to choose from. And unfortunately, the Chiefs are tagging their guard. He was kind of the apple of a lot of Jags' eyes. A lot of people wanted to see us go after him, but he is no longer going to be on the market. Someone who I think is a sneaky great grab and may not be super expensive is the Steelers guard, James Daniels, who is very good in the run and solid in the passing block. He got hurt last season, only played, I think, 4 or 5 games, but will be completely healthy next season and still young, 27 years old. PFF actually had him graded the second best run blocker as a guard. And us trying to beef up our interior line and really need to work on our run blocking, I think he would be a great grab. Don't think you'd have to spend too much to get him. So that's a name that hasn't been thrown out there a lot that we could possibly go snag for maybe under $10 million.
Man, I like that, Joey. James Daniels, I don't see a lot about him, but yeah, the PFF grade is there. The Steelers typically have a very strong offensive line. We're going to need to beef up that interior offensive line. We were a little better this year, which was nice to see, but we need to keep taking the next step. Trevor's getting hurt too often, and we just had too many guys in the backfield, especially on 3rd and 4th and short. We need to be able to convert those at a much higher rate. Will Fries is one more name. He's not a superstar, but he's an offensive guard from the Colts, 27 years old. Could be another potential guy for the Jags to look at as well.
Yeah, I've seen him. He could be a nice guard. Also something I see just now with James Daniels. He's 6'4", 326 pounds, so nice size. But apparently he also has experience playing center. So that could be a really nice thing. If Mitch Morris could go down, you have another backup center, because honestly, I don't trust Luke Fortner at all. He honestly probably could get cut. I think you save $3 million. I looked at it if we cut him. So I would be surprised, honestly, if he's still on the team. 27 years old, Steelers. So I really do like this guy a lot. Would love to see us try to go after him. But if we don't, I see us doing a lot of offense and defensive line stuff in the draft, which, lucky for us, both offense and defensive line are so deep. We can go first round. We can get really good guys all the way up until like the 5th, 6th round. If you watch the combine, there was a lot of really good offense and defensive line guys. A lot of these guys can be day one starters, will be really good. We'll get into kind of our favorites in the next coming episodes, who we really like for the offense and defensive line, who the Jags should go after in the draft.
Absolutely. And we're going to drop some extra draft content. We know there's some diehard NFL draft fans and Jags fans. So we always try to give some extra draft content there on YouTube. So make sure to check us out there, subscribe. This is just an exciting offseason. Finally, we're in our post-Balky era. We've got a new GM, new head coach, new coaching staff. There's excitement in Jacksonville. This could be one of the biggest off seasons in Jaguars history in just terms of building a real legit contender back in Jacksonville. And there's already rumors today about maybe the Jags try and go trade for Cooper Kupp with the Rams connection with James Gladstone. All that to say, make sure you follow us on Twitter or X, whatever you're calling it, at the Jag Bros. We're going to be trying to tweet a bunch. We're going to be following the free agency really, really closely. And then once the Jags make their moves, we're going to be back with a new episode talking about all these new Jaguars players and then looking ahead to the NFL draft.
This is going to be a fun offseason. It's going to be some new names, new blood on this team with the new coaches. It's just like, what is it going to be? This is all new. The Jaguars really haven't ever gone with this young of coaches, a lot of inexperienced people. This is their first time as a head coach, first time as a GM. Usually we kind of go for the middle of the road guy who's done it for a few years and not with great success, but we always kind of hope that maybe they get it right here in Jacksonville, and they never have. But it's finally something new, and with new things comes excitement. So it may not work, but I'm just excited that it is new, and maybe it will.
As Shad Khan just said, it's a huge amount of potential to grow into. So we are betting on potential, believing in potential. And hey, before y'all go, make sure to hit that 5-star ratings on Apple, Spotify, wherever you're consuming this podcast. This helps us to get to more Jags fans. And you know, it's really awesome, guys. These last 2 episodes have been listened to in 12 different countries. So especially for our international Jags fans, leave a rating and review. We want to give y'all a special shout out. We're going to wrap it up in true Jacksonville Jaguars fashion. Duval.